Hi guys, welcome to the studio sessions and welcome to the last episode of the studio sessions in 2025 or 2025, if you want to say it that way. It's the last episode of the year. That seems crazy. So I wanted to take this week's episode to do a little celebrating of 2025. Some good things, some crazy things, and kind of just some main takeaways as we close out the year. If you have maybe now noticed, I do have a little bit of an upgrade with my setup. I have a new mic stand and a pop filter. Hopefully that will be really good. So let me know what you think. Yeah, I was really excited to upgrade my setup a little bit. So, 2025. What even has happened this year in the movie industry? A lot. So I was thinking about it. There's been big things in like every quarter of the year that alone would be huge, right? Like we actually started 2025, but we actually started the year with the fires in LA. And that led to delays in the film industry from the beginning of the year because everything stopped. Like a bunch of productions were put on hold, a bunch of productions were delayed because of the fires. And Hollywood's still recovering from that. Things still need to be rebuilt. Like productions got back rolling, right? But I wouldn't say it's fully bounced back from that delay because that was pretty delayed. There was, I think, a significant amount of what should have been released earlier released like during the summer when they had been, the whole thing got delayed. So everything shifted a little bit. Backtracking a little bit, not only did we start the year with the fires in LA, with the whole Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni thing, situation, saga, whatever you want to call that, that that happened like the day after Christmas last year. So the bulk of that whole thing has happened this year. It's wild to me because it feels like so much has happened since then that it doesn't even feel like I forgot that was actually like that whole thing started this year. It's not just it was still ongoing. It started really this year. I mean, we had a little bit last summer, right? That's when it truly kicked off, was last summer. But the lawsuits, all of that mess, that was this year. Like Blake Lively's lawsuit happened, if I'm remembering these things correctly, which I'm going off of just raw memory, so I might be a little bit off, but it was like the day after Christmas that the whole thing came out about the smear campaign and like that whole thing started. So it was the last week of 2024 that kicked off and has been ongoing since. So it's just crazy that was only that long ago and that most of that has happened this year. Crazy. So there's that. Right? That's how we started the year. And I do feel like that's impactful for all of the drama that surrounds it, right? Like the drama surrounding that movie is really what that movie is remembered for instead of the movie itself. But all of that whole story, I think, is just going to make everybody even more scared to do something wrong. Everybody's going to want to be even more careful with contracts, with having some kind of buffer for statements and accusations being able to be made. I just feel like that's where that's going to lead. I don't know. And people being more careful about who they work with, like even pickier. I don't know. We'll see what lasting impacts comes from that. Honestly, it's coming down to kind of like just a whole bunch of drama. A whole bunch of drama. But there's that. After that, we also went into the whole discussion of productions in LA. There was the whole Stay in LA campaign where everybody was pushing for productions themselves to stay in LA. And that really kicked off or really grew. I think it was already going on, but it really grew after the fires because everybody was so worried what the fires were going to do to LA. And so that whole thing was at the beginning of the year. And then the summer box office was not what it could have been. And it's just kind of been one thing after another each part of this year for the industry. Then you go into like a horror takeover in the fall, and really throughout the whole second half of the year, horror has been huge. You had Sinners come out, which was huge. Weapons did incredible numbers, and that was major. And now to finish the year off, Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. These all are things that have major lasting impacts on the entertainment industry on their own. Like if it was just one of these things within a year, it would be huge. But it's multiple in 1 year. And I do think some of the reactions to some of these is going to determine how things look moving forward. Like I do feel like we aren't done seeing the impacts of these things as far as decisions on how we move forward, ways to adjust. I think in particular, of course, how the Netflix buying Warner Brothers thing will be massive. But I also feel like some of the other shifts we're seeing are going to be massive also. One of the decisions that got announced within the last 2 weeks, I think, I can't even remember timeline-wise, but within this month, I think it was within the last 2 weeks, that got announced was the Oscars have signed a contract with YouTube. So starting in, I believe it's 2029, the Oscars will exclusively stream on YouTube. And this is surprising, but not unexpected. I think people in the industry are starting to see they can't ignore this shift anymore. They can't act like it's not happening. They can't hope that people will just readjust and come back to where they were. That's not happening. And the Oscars has been losing audience for a while. In particular, I think not this very last year, but the year before last, the audience numbers were really bad. And I mean, if you watch the Oscars, not many of them are ones that the average moviegoer and movie audience member is going to know. It's very obscure, unique, highbrow, like industry insider films. Not just art house, although that is an element to it. It's also very international compared to what it was before. It is not the average film that's being looked at, and not just, oh, it's not average, but it is not what the average audience member is watching. Many of the films that are being talked about on the Oscars end up not being ones many people have seen, that the average person has seen. So I feel like that needs to change. And maybe them switching to YouTube will change that. Maybe Them switching to YouTube is a sign that they see these issues and they're trying to address it. They're trying to reconnect with their audience again. I think this is where it gets a little too lost in the messaging, because linear TV is already on its way out. Like, linear TV is not doing well. And the Oscars leaving is kind of one of the last major thing, like that in sports. Sports would be huge to have leave linear TV. That decision has not been made, but the Oscars leaving shows, maybe hopefully, that they're willing to try something new. That they're seeing the issues and hoping to address them. So we'll see. But I feel like this whole year has been transition. It's been so many twists and turns and pivots and having to navigate uncharted things and trying to figure out how to move forward. And lots of elements that have been normal changing. So the whole mantra that got talked about in the movie industry of survive till 25 has not really been a thing. I don't think I've heard that referenced very much this year since the year started. There was the whole survive till 25 and 25 is going to be better, and so much of that kind of just dropped. I think this was a year of transition. In a lot of ways, in ways that are hopefully good for the industry, but in a lot of ways that shake the norms, that don't leave it in a recognizable state, and that kind of force the addressing of all of these things we've been talking about, of all of the differences in the industry that can't be ignored. Really quick, I just want to take a second to share a part of my website you may not know exists. On butterflyentertainment.online, you actually can buy some merch. So we have merch for the company, Butterfly Entertainment. We have t-shirts. You can get it in a hoodie. You can also get Like a Butterfly, the film merch. I, right now, am wearing the Like a Butterfly hoodie. I absolutely love it. It's so incredibly soft, so comfortable, so warm. I absolutely love this. And I also have the Acid Wash Butterfly Entertainment shirt, and it's so fun. So you can get those in the store, the merch store on our website, at the link in the show notes. Check it out. The tax incentives, the audience distance, the streaming wars. A lot of these things kind of came to a head this year, and some kind of addressing of it had to happen. And hopefully 2026 can be the positive other end of those scenarios, where these are positive changes. And we start seeing things go up and it starts looking better. Because one of the other things that happened this year was, towards the end of the year, a lot more taking chances. You have things like Netflix trying to and saying they were going into the theatrical movie business. That was not something anybody had on their bingo card for 2025. Some people might have had Netflix trying to buy places. Definitely not them making the statement that they were going into the theatrical movie business. Not something anybody guessed. So that could be a really good signal for what 2026 could bring. The future could bring. Might not be complete enough through 2026 to actually have that particular situation have impact. Not in that way. But overall, I think it's a good sign. And I do think a lot of people are noticing the need for creativity. I mean, if you look at, I think a lot of people are noticing the need for creativity. If you look at what was released towards the end of this year, you have Zootopia 2 over Thanksgiving, and Weapons, and Sinners. And I think that shows the beauty in what can happen when you take chances, when you do things that might not be expected. And more than anything, that has been my takeaway from 2025, is the need to think outside the box, do things that aren't normally expected, do things a little bit of a unique way, make your own road for things. I think if anything that we've seen in 2025, it is the thriving of the independent, of the making your own way, rather than depending on the traditional route to get you there, to get your film made, to get it distributed, to get it produced. That's kind of become a free-for-all this year in a way that has brought some really cool things. And people asking for ownership more. People asking for more control. Rather than feeding the system, feeding the cogs, they're asking for more ownership. Like Ryan Coogler with Sinners, and him getting ownership rights back at a certain point within his contract. I know that contract got a lot of backlash for them, but if you think about it, it could be really good to adjust things. And it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. Also, I think the pattern of streamers adjusting, of studios adjusting, theaters adjusting, everybody's trying to figure out what to do. And a lot of different things this year was them trying to do that. Them trying new things. And also symptoms of being scared to try new things. So it'll be interesting to see the long-term effects of that kind of thinking. As I've said before, I feel like that's more of what we need right now. We need people to be okay with taking a chance on a new idea because we need new content. We need something besides sequels and live action versions of movies and nostalgia. I love a good nostalgic movie. I love rehashing movies I love. But we've had a lot of that. And I think that's why the end of this year has felt so good to me, because there's been a lot more, towards the end of this year, there's been a lot more what felt like fresh movies. Like the new Knives Out that was released on Netflix and in theaters. Like Taylor Swift going outside the system to go directly to the movie theaters. There's a lot that happened that felt more unique and fresh and new rather than the same things redone. And that makes me excited. So I think if I were to take any particular lesson from 2025 in the industry, it is adapt. It is adapting to how things are evolving. And I know I mentioned this when I was talking about the Bob Iger book, The Ride of a Lifetime. The Disney CEO, Bob Iger, wrote in his book that one of the lessons he'd been taught by a mentor in the industry was innovate or die. I mean, innovate can also be similar to adapt, but I feel like it's the same thing. Like, adapt, think outside the box, do something new and different because nobody else is doing anything new or different. And that can make all the difference in the world. I'm starting to feel like we have almost completed the transition to new media. The traditional media outlets, the traditional way of handling media has not stayed the same in a lot of ways. None of it looks how it did before, and it's still not performing well. But the new media is. It's thriving. And I think that's something that you have to catch and hold on to and be willing to adapt and adjust and try new things and get creative. I think creativity and adaptation are probably my two key words for what I learned in 2025 about filmmaking and the industry as a whole. Is you need to adapt and you need to be creative. If you can keep going with those two things, you're doing well. And stop thinking about numbers. Don't get so caught up in what everybody else is doing and forget to do what you're trying to do. And that's what I think a lot of the studios have forgotten while they've been trying to navigate the whole streaming wars battle, is that the movie theater started with innovation. They started with pushing boundaries of what was possible, with being on the brink of technology. And we lost that. Things got so caught up with how much money can we make off of this that they stopped being creative and stopped taking those risks. And that's what's missing. And that's what new media does that the traditional studios are not. And so when they can get that, I think we'll see a big shift. And I think they're starting to understand that. I think they're finally being willing to look at that and do something different. And even within the streaming wars, Netflix buys Warner Brothers and goes into the theatrical movie business. That is insane and tells you everything about how necessary adapting and being creative are in this industry. It's a creative industry, and that can get forgotten. So that is what I learned from watching all of these headlines this year about the film industry, and also releasing my own and seeing how that went. And oh boy, did I pick quite a time to start a production company. But, I still want to be creative. I still want to innovate. I still want to adapt. I still want to be creative. And I'm still motivated and ready to tell good stories. That's how I'm feeling closing out this year. I will probably do a whole other episode, maybe next week, on what to expect in 2026, whether that's from the film industry itself or from Butterfly Entertainment, from studio sessions. Let me know what you would want to see. Would you want that all one episode? Break it out into a series? Let me know. And let me know what you take from everything that's happened in the industry and in movies in 2025. I would love to hear your thoughts. So leave me a comment below and let me know. And I hope you guys have a wonderful end of the year. Happy New Year. And I'll see you in 2026. Bye. The Studio Sessions is a Butterfly Entertainment production. You can keep up with all of our podcasts, YouTube videos, films, and other projects on our Instagram page. We are at Butterfly Entertainment Group. Thanks for listening.